All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction. Zach Smith, Minister Sports, on with us to talk a little bit about this Ohio State-Indiana game. Zach, I don't think when you were doing your season previews, season predictions, we thought that this would be a top 5 matchup for a chance to go to Indy, but here we are.
I mean, who would have thought at the end of the year, if Ohio State wins, they'd be like, oh, man, what was their quality win? It's like, oh, Indiana was their best win. You're like, what? Excuse me? Indiana has the second best odds to make the playoffs right now over the entire SEC, over everyone except for Oregon. They have the best percentage chance to make the playoffs. Just wild. And Kirk Cignetti, I mean, I knew him when he was at Bama. I mean, kind of a strange dude. Didn't, likable guy. Went to JMU, had success, shows up in Indiana, just walking with his cock out. Like, just he's him. And I'm like, this is absolutely wild.
Yeah. He's not afraid to tell you either. I like that, though. Like, I don't have room. I hate this fake humility from guys that are making like $7-8 million a year. No, man, just tell people how good you are,
No doubt. And call a shot, right? Like before the year at a basketball game to say, Purdue sucks. And you know what? So does Ohio State and Michigan. You're like, buddy, you're in Indiana. You better pump the brakes. He's like, no. Google me. I win.
Yeah. Phenomenal stuff from him. They've been impressive lately. In a year that we keep saying this, and it's almost become cliche, where there's no truly dominant team. Is it fair to say that Ohio State might be playing the best football in the country right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're playing complementary football. I think they're playing really good football. I do question if they have what it takes to go toe to toe with Oregon a second time, or to go beat one of the SEC teams. They have a couple losses, but they're still so dangerous. I don't know if Ohio State has the big playability on offense, and the corners have been up and down. And so I think they're going to be fine the rest of the regular season. I think they'll give Oregon a game, and I even think they might win the Big Ten championship. But I still need to see some stuff from their pass game, from Will Howard hitting deep balls, from their corners really leveling up, and enough with the hiccup plays, those brain fart plays, or the PI because you got a little handsy. Like, that stuff needs to subside if they're going to go, wire to wire. Because it's one thing to make a 4-team playoff, and if you win the semi, you might catch a TCU in the national championship or a Washington. That we're like, you're the better team. In this 12-team matchup, I mean, if they don't win the Big Ten, they're going to have to go 4 straight games against legit teams, and I think that's going to be really hard for anybody. And so I think they're playing some of the best football, but you watch a team like Georgia, and Carson Beck is so inconsistent. That's why I don't think they have a chance to win the national championship. Now, I also think they could beat anybody in the country if Carson Beck's on, but the likelihood he's going to be on 4 games in a row is really low. Same with Jalen Milroe. But one of those teams, if Jalen Milroe's on and plays like he played against Georgia, whoever they're playing is going to lose. Ohio State, Oregon, doesn't matter. It's going to be an interesting year, man, because it's so much inconsistency, and like you said, there's not a dominant team out there.
Are you looking to up your game in sports betting? Meet OddsJam, your ultimate ally in the world of data-driven wagering. With over 260 sportsbook under its belt, OddsJam is the go-to platform for savvy bettors. Here's how it works. OddsJam's arbitrage tool scans the market in real time, spotting differences in betting lines across various sportsbooks. This means you can lock in risk-free profits by betting on both sides of the market. But that's not all. OddsJam also provides positive EV calculators to optimize your bets and a handy bet tracker to monitor your profits. By using OddsJam, you're not just betting smarter, you're betting responsibly for long-term profitability. And here's the kicker. They offer a 7-day free trial. Ready to give it a shot? Use code CFA, that's College Football Addiction, for a 35% discount on your first payment, either monthly or yearly. Secure your bets with confidence and make informed decisions with OddsJam. I've always been against playoff expansion. Shoot, I didn't like when it went to 4. And but I do think this playoff is going to be phenomenal just because of what you just mentioned. So many teams that can on any given Saturday can win. And that wasn't really the case last year. Like, anybody that Michigan or Georgia or whomever saw last year was probably going to lose. And so, yeah, I think that this year will be more fun, and it almost makes me maybe with NIL and the portal and guys not, Georgia doesn't have the depth they used to have. Ohio State, like it has helped level it, and it will actually make the playoff pretty fun. Which, like you said, yeah, if anybody that gets in there that just puts together, a couple of consistent games, puts themselves in really good position to win it. You mentioned some quarterbacks. Indiana's quarterback Curtis Rourke, currently fifth right now in the Heisman odds. Obviously, it feels like it's maybe Hunter's to run away with at this point. But he could certainly take a leap up if he had kind of a show me game on Saturday. Just thoughts on how he matches up with Ohio State's defense.
Well, the kid's incredible. I mean, and if you go into his whole story, like he's a Canadian kid. That's why he was so under recruited. Then he gets recruited to go to Ohio University and really lit it up. I mean, we talked about him in the last couple of years randomly where I do these analytic research. I'm like, this kid from Ohio U is leading the country in XYZ. And then to see him doing it in Indiana, it's impressive to watch because he doesn't have he has better skill than Indiana usually has, but it's nothing to write home about. They don't have Oregon's receivers, but he's so efficient and he throws kids open all the time. He's on time. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't turn the ball over. He gets the ball out to avoid rush because their offensive line's better than it has been. And I think Curt Cignetti and his staff have really developed the shit out of this roster. But they're not going to play another game outside of the Purdue game the rest of the year where they're even equal talent. So they need to tackle phenomenally, block phenomenally, and he has to play on his game. He has to be efficient, protect the ball, and that's what he's done all year. That's why they haven't even been in a close game yet. And I think that their style of play could become problematic for Ohio State because Ohio State has a tendency to start slow. They have a tendency to have a breakdown on coverage every now and then. Will Howard has a tendency to turn the ball over here or there. And I think if Ohio State doesn't kind of dot their I's and cross their T's and make sure they have the focus for a top 5 game and ignore the fact that the logo or on their chest, it says the word Indiana, which has traditionally, I mean, my whole time at Ohio State, when they played Indiana, you just knew they were going to come out flat because it's Indiana. They have to get that out of their mind because this team will beat them if they come in like that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, you mentioned Will Howard a little bit and we've talked about him on and off through the year, but thoughts on how Indiana's defense can hope to contain if Ohio State's clicking, you probably can't, but if, how they'll match up, I guess, against Ohio State's offense is the idea.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see it. I mean, Indiana hasn't played anyone that's the whole country screaming about it. And I agree. And I'll be interested to see how they try to defend Ohio State because the problem with Ohio State right now is they're running the shit out of the football. And they just did it against Northwestern of all people, where the run game kind of struggled early for a multitude of reasons. Traditionally, Ryan Day, when that happens, abandons the run because he's a pass-first guy and just goes nuclear in the throw game. And it doesn't always bode well for how close the game is or the overall performance. I mean, they don't lose to teams they shouldn't under Ryan Day. But I think it's going to be what they did against Northwestern, and it was Chip Kelly that did it. He stuck with the run game. And just it wasn't working but he kept going to it, kept dialing up runs, and eventually they started popping. And that's what they have to do. They did it against Oregon too. It started struggling. Oregon's a great defensive front. They kind of abandoned it, and that bit them in the ass. As long as they stick with the run game, I think they're going to be able to run the football in Indiana because they're better players. And Chip Kelly's run game scheme it's second to none. I mean, he has a multitude of different run concepts that are all complementary. So. I honestly think they need to load the box and stop the run game first, and they need to force Will Howard to hit some deep balls. I mean, he's not bad at it. Like I think he's top 10 in the country at deep ball completion percentage, but they just don't do it a lot. It's like they run the ball, they do these little RPOs. They've got some freaks, the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, that might take a 7-yard hitch, 23, and that's how they get their big plays. I think at some point, and it might not be Indiana, somebody's going to have the personnel to come up, challenge you, force you to throw it over their heads, and then we're in the F around and find out season. Like, okay, can they do that? We haven't seen them do it. No. Can they do it? And if they can't, it's going to be a dogfight.
Is this game, home and away matters too, but is this game from the Ohio State perspective more concerning or less concerning than the Penn State game was?
I think around the same. I mean, it definitely being on the road at Penn State was concerning, but Penn State's not as good of a football team as Indiana. Now they've got some better players. Like their running back duo of Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen is better than Indiana's backfield. Like they have talent that can rival Ohio State in some certain spots. Their defense specifically. I mean, Abdul Carter is one of the best edge rushers in the country. Like Indiana doesn't have that, but overall, Indiana's a better football team when it comes to tackling, when it comes to blocking, when it comes to, not having blown assignments and playing with technique. Like, you're going to have to physically go beat Indiana. They're not going to slip up and like, oh shit, we busted a coverage or a kid fell down. Like they're really, really well coached. And so I think having it at home, you might give the edge to going on the road to Penn State, but we get these noon games in Columbus every freaking week. And it's exhausting because Ohio State's game day atmosphere is, I mean, middle of the country. I mean, every SEC school, probably including Vanderbilt, has a better game day atmosphere when it comes to just lights and, music and just creating that atmosphere. I talk about all the time. South Carolina is one of the hardest places to play that I've coached against. And it shouldn't be, right? Like, they're a middle of the road SEC team. They're just missing something in Columbus when it comes to that. And then Fox is just whoring out Ohio State. Put them at noon every week so we can get those ratings. And hopefully, I mean, Ryan Day's already pleading with Buckeye fans, like pleading for them to show up, and he needs it to be loud and electric because it's dead. These noon games are dead in Columbus.
Do you have a prediction for this one? Have you put one out or done one?
No, I haven't. I mean, I just saw earlier today the spread was 13.5, and I think if Ohio State does what I said, and I think they will. I don't think they're going to turn the ball over. I think they're truly in that fine-tune phase where it's like, all right, it's time to become a championship caliber football team. We got to fine-tune these little details, and I think they'll do that. And they'll get their signature win against Indiana, of all people, to really hopefully get the momentum going because they're going to need it to make a run in this postseason.
Zach, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work, bud?
Oh, shoot, anywhere. Menace to Sports on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Twitter, and everywhere. Instagram, social media, all that.
Good stuff, man. I appreciate you for taking some time and chatting. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it.